we got to a point where we realized that we better think about something else. So now, today, we are in what I call the suspended human evolution because now we have to plan what I am calling the second human evolution. And the
Okay.
second human evolution has to be something that we plan. It's not going to evolve because what has evolved for 2.5 billion years is survival of the fittest
Mm-hmm.
person,
Mm-hmm.
the survival of the fittest tribe, the survival of the fittest nation. Can't do that anymore. This has
Right.
got to be survival of a fit planet. And so we have to plan that.
Welcome to the Creation Podcast, where we discuss with change makers about living more in harmony with each other and with the planet. And I hope with these discussions we can pass on the knowledge of our experience and what we are encountering in the field. Today I have Jeff with me from Care for Peace. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what it is that you do?
I am Jeffrey Charles Hardy, and for about 50 years, I planned and built hospitals all over the United States. And then after I sold my company to a Fortune 500 company, I started a nonprofit organization that built the first prototype community development and health center in Myanmar. That's Burma. It's, let's see, which one is it? Oh, here, it's right there on the map behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So is that near
And
India?
it's, yeah, but it's
Mm-hmm.
near Bangladesh. Only a small portion touches from India,
Okay.
but mostly Bangladesh on one side, Thailand on the other side, China on the other side. So, and then the Bay of Bengal um, uh, that is on most of its western seaboard.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely a beautiful, unbelievably wonderful country. We worked there with a partner in the country that started at the same time we did. We worked hand in hand to develop this prototype. And then after the military coup that wiped out the government there, Aung San Suu Kyi and the people that we were working with and the government and the local, we had to leave.
Yeah.
But our partner company, the People's Health Foundation, they stayed there, which was really cool. And they've built about 13 more of these facilities. And
Wow.
our goal was 250 of them nationwide. And we're getting there. So, so that's what happened. When I left, well, I had to go after the military coup. I
Mm-hmm.
wrote a book. And now, are we doing this in video or is it audio? What's the
So far it seems that the video is gonna be okay, so I can use the videos. Sometimes I have
okay?
videos with glitch, so yeah.
Got it. So I'm holding up the book that I wrote called To Care for Peace. And it's a global mandate to secure the second human evolution in perpetuity. And you say, what are you talking about? There's
Yeah, what
no,
are you talking
you
about,
know,
Jeff?
there's no such thing as a second evolution, human evolution. And no, they're right. There is no such thing as the second human evolution. And that's because I came up with this idea when I was working in Myanmar and Nigeria and Vietnam, all these places that I was working in. And I realized that we don't have a global conscience, yeah, that too,
Mm-hmm.
of what's what's going on in the world. And so we need to back up and we need to look at where humanity is in relation to our projected future, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that anywhere we've really gotten it. So I decided that I'd back up and I'd look at humanity from a timeline standpoint. That the first human evolution began 2.5 million years ago, and that it ended sometime between the 50s and the 60s of the last millennia, 1950s, 1960s. When
Yeah.
mutually assured destruction occurred, and that's also when the peace movement started. It's when
Mm.
America uh, suddenly realized that the country China wasn't just a place where all the toys came from. It
Right.
actually was a place. And existentialism from France came to the West. All of a sudden, people had circumnavigated the world. Nobody in their right mind was saying the Earth is flat anymore because
Mm-hmm,
we had
mm-hmm.
proof that it isn't.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's the end of the first human evolution. And the reason why I say it's the end is because we had been killing for peace for a long time. We had survival of the fittest for a long time. And sometime in the 60s, especially when the mutually assured destruction uh, of sending up atom bombs and bombing everybody, that
Yeah.
wasn't the solution. We got to a point where we realized that we better think about something else. So now, today, we are in what I call the suspended human evolution because now we have to plan what I am calling the second human evolution. And the
Okay.
second human evolution has to be something that we plan. It's not going to evolve because what has evolved for 2.5 billion years is survival of the fittest
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
person, the survival of the fittest tribe, the survival of the fittest nation. Can't do that anymore. This has
Right.
got to be survival of a fit planet. And so we have to plan that. Now, I have been planning healthcare systems all over the world for the last 50 years. I know how to plan.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, maybe I could help plan the second human evolution by sharing some of the tools that I have learned, that I have used, some of the tools that didn't work. I mean, I've made more mistakes than anybody else in the world when it comes to planning. And so I can share all my mistakes too. But the fact is, planning is a unique exercise where you get people together. And when I say getting people together, I had people, for example, I was a year in Bahrain in the Persian Gulf in
Mm-hmm.
a hospital designing hospitals for the Saudis and other countries. And I had about maybe 8 or 9 or 12, up to 12 people in the room that came from other countries, that were different professions, that were different religions, but we all spoke English, and but we all could plan, and we all brought the ideas for planning a new hospital in the same room with the same people together. So I know
Yeah.
how to plan with groups of people. That's what we have to do if we want to plan the second human evolution.
And I have a question for you that going back a little bit, because you were mentioning about like the dropping of the bombs and these things. Arguably, what I see now is that it feels like we're going back in that era because we're having all, yeah, wars all over the place again. What do you think about that?
I think that it's hard to drag our feet out of the first human evolution. And we are able now to look at what's happening and saying, wait a minute, that's not right. Israeli, Israel is going to Gaza and killing women and children. And what's happening in the Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
they're not just women and children. I don't buy off on this thing. Well, it's just the civilians. They shouldn't
Yeah.
get killed. We need to be focused on just killing the bad guys who are the
Right.
ones who are wearing uniforms. And that's just a bunch of bullshit. We got to get away from that. And so that's part of the feet dragging process that we are watching happen. But thankfully, most of us are not doing that. So there's two things
Mm-hmm.
happening. One, we're dragging our feet, and mostly these countries that are fighting and killing each other, what's going on between India and Pakistan right now,
Mm-hmm.
that's just as bad. I mean,
Yeah.
they did it. 70,000, I think 70 people got killed in the latest bombing. All this stuff is wrong because we know that one of the things that you do is you prevent. And this is my preventive health attitude that comes from all my experience in healthcare. Prevention is worth £1,000,000 of cure. It's just so
Yeah.
important. And part of preventing is doing what you're doing. It's talking to the people, talking to everybody. It's making sure that they understand their role, because their role, your role, our role is to talk
Mm-hmm.
about this and say, how can we avoid the first human evolution
Yeah.
attitudes and actions? And how can we plan the second human evolution? And that's why I say that's your job. That's
Yeah.
what you're here to do.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna ask then how, if you want to go further into that. So, I understand we can plan it, but then how can we plan? What exactly are we planning then?
well, my expertise was really in pre-planning, pre dash hyphen
Mm-hmm.
planning, and pre-planning is a facilitating process. It's getting the people together.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're talking about what do you do, we got to get people together. But the first thing you do is talk about what it is you think you're going to do. And that's, as I say, I'm pointing to you. This is your job. This is what you are doing if you're looking at global change, if you're looking at dealing with the global problems, not from a national standpoint. It's got to be a global standpoint. So, how do you do that? You got to start using the right language. You've got to start communicating with the same tools that everybody else is using. And if they don't have the tools, then you need to work with them and develop the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Bring them in. Tell them to bring their tools. I talk with people of all religions, you name it, and people of all nationalities. And when I listen a lot because what I'm hearing is some derivation of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, and so what we do is we say, well, oh yeah, we're talking about that. Okay, so we have this wonderful Pope that just popped up, unbelievable Pope Leo, and he started to talk about dealing with the immigration problems, the migration problems, the need to have a shared faith. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hello, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, and this is where I think that we need to be looking at how we communicate and what the tools. Here's an example of tools.
Mm-hmm.
uh, the human evolution is three stages. The first human evolution, the sustainable, the not sustainable, the other one, the one that we're in right now, sus something. Anyway, and what is it? What is it? Suspended. Suspended.
Suspended. Okay.
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
you have the first human evolution, the suspended human evolution, and then the second. Okay, those are the things. Now, what that is it's just humans. It's not our dogs and cats. It's not animals. It's not the flora
Mm.
and fauna. We got to look at ourselves and what we have done for the last 2.5 million years to get to this point. And it is not the Anthropocene or the Holocene. The Holocene is strictly a geographic concept that's part of the Paleo. Okay, another O scene. Um,
Yeah.
and and the Anthropocene is the human effect on the geology. So
Mm.
the, you've got the Holocene, which is a geographic concept, and then you have the Anthropocene, which is a how are we affecting the geography?
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing it? That's not looking at the human evolution. So I've separated all that other stuff. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about that. I want to talk about us because that's what we're talking about. So when we're talking about global warming and the rising seas, we aren't
Mm.
talking about how Florida is dealing, as a state in preparing a big, huge wall around, a levee around Florida. They better call the Dutch. That's what I say. But we're gonna. What are we doing as a global nation? Very important because
Mm.
I am promoting a global nation in this whole process. We have to seek having a global nation. And that's where we've all got together and we've agreed on what the second human evolution is. And we are all working together to make sure that we can sustain this planet and this planet can subsequently sustain us.
Right.
That's
Yeah. But so I'm thinking now, in terms of that evolution to kind of come from my understanding so far, is that we're moving away from kind of um, having individual nations like we do now with the that we're caught up in borders and these things, but that we're having a, as you said, a global community almost. But then I think the first thing that comes to my mind, at least, is um, well, how do you organize that in terms of, because now um, we have we have a nationality. With that nationality, we have a kind of passport and local taxes. So that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too practical, but that's where my head is going. Like, how,
No,
what does that look like?
no, good. And first of all, we have been progressing slowly but slowly, and slowly but surely. And nations, that's part of the progression. Um, but communicating between nations, that's work. That's working. I mean, we're having these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are important conversations. The problem is that we're having, well, we aren't convening enough of the preventive stuff. We're waiting until the bombs start flying, from
Mm, yeah.
Israel to Syria or God only knows. We, we need to do a whole lot of talking and a whole lot of planning. And you know what? We're learning how to do it. This is not something that I'm coming up on my own. I'm looking at positive results all over the world in this. It's no longer one tribe fighting another tribe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's, nations trying to get along. And the economic connections between nations is important. This whole bit about tariffs that that Trump
Yeah.
is using, I'm thinking, okay, I don't like the idea, but it's continuing the discussion, and
Yeah.
I appreciate continuing discussion. I want every country to get angry at each other and say, "Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair." That's great. Thank you. Let's let's end up with what's fair.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we do what we need to do. So there's all sorts of stuff going on that I don't necessarily agree with,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay as long as we're not killing each other.
Right.
What's going on between America and China? That's okay. Between America and England, okay, so there's an agreement now, and we're only going to levy 10% taxes on some imports from Britain. Okay, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a step in a direction. I'm not even going to say it's a right direction, but
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
interested in steps, and I want the steps to at least be nonviolent. If
Right.
we got what Gandhi had to say, what Martin Luther King had to say. We got it, nonviolence, but we have to take that whole nonviolence and realize that this is how we are dealing on an economic standpoint right now. We're looking at
Mm.
equity. We're looking at what's equitable. We're looking at what's fair, and it's wonderful. Sports is great because sports has rules, and people are saying, "Oh, that's no fair. Oh, he was
Yeah. Yeah.
offsides." These are good conversations because we're using built-in tools to move ahead. I feel that we have done a darn good job moving ahead. So yeah, there are wars, and boy, would I like to see them all stop. But what I want is I want more talk. I
Mm.
want more discussions. And so my first book was about that discussion, To Care for Peace. And the name of my nonprofit organization was called Care for Peace.
Mm-hmm.
The name of my song that I wrote for the little children to sing at the groundbreaking and at the grand opening of our community development and health center in Myanmar. The song is called Care for Peace, the Care for Peace anthem. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, uh, I really think that the way we're going in this world is the right direction. We just have to catch up to it. There's a lot of that we have to do. I mean, Al Gore is the one who said, "Hey, we aren't moving fast enough."
Yeah.
Yeah, he is right. He is right. So, little by little, we'll get the speed up. But this new
Yeah.
pope, I just first of all, I love Francis. I'm not a Catholic, but I'll tell you, I not, no, I should say I'm not a capital C Catholic. I am a small C Catholic, and if you look up the word small C Catholic spelled with a little
Mm,
c, look it up. Merriam-Webster's. It means in, it, global. It means uh, everybody together. It means togetherness. It's a inclusive word. I think that
mm,
inclusive, that word is actually this synonymous for the small C Catholic. This is the right direction. And this guy, Leo, unbelievable. I think he's starting out great. He's making sure that the capital C Catholics know that he's not going to slip
mm,
away from what their core beliefs are. And I think that's excellent because that's got to be the first thing that he does. He makes sure that the rank and file know that he's not going to yank them off their places, but little by little, he will do what Francis did. I
mm.
mean, Francis, first place he went when he became pope was to a tiny little island in between Sicily and Tunisia. And that was the island that a lot of the migrants were floating to when they had nowhere to
Okay.
go. When they and so he went to that Lampedusa. I can't remember what the name of the island is, but he went to that island to to commiserate, to talk, to preach, to share with these poor people who had nowhere to go and nowhere they came from. That was an incredible, powerful statement of care for peace.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why my organization was named Care for Peace, because it's something that came from my heart from a long, long ago when I was only 16 years old.
Wow.
And then I keep seeing it all over the world. Care for peace, just an unbelievably simple concept. And I look to any individual person to see if they are caring for their own peace and for the people of others and for the peace of the planet. Those are the two most important words: to care
Okay.
for peace. We've got to do that. If we can't bring our care for peace to the table, then forget about being part of
Mhm.
the planning of the second human evolution, because it ain't
Right.
going to happen.
So how about the people that don't care for peace then in this sense? What and maybe the question is what do we do with them? But I'm thinking if we want to be inclusive, then often the idea is that we want to include everybody. But it feels like there are some people that just don't care for peace. So what do we do there?
We take care of them. We take care of them, and we take care of their peace. Uh, Once you have the plan in your heart first, which is to care for peace, then you're not going to stop. This is this is a foundation spiritual principle
Mm,
to care for peace. So when I went to Myanmar, did I know those people I was helping? Did I know any of them? No, I was in a remote village that was so far away from San Francisco. I had to fly all around the world to go to that little country. And then when I got to that little country right above my finger, I had to fly for another flight, stay for another day before I got on a boat for 3.5 hours to go up a delta of mangrove swamps to a town where I had to get out the boat and walk all the way to the town where we were building this community development health center. Did I know any of those people? No. Some of these people came up to the path where we were walking and looked at me because I'm a
mm,
white guy, and they were all dark skinned, not black. They were dark skinned
yeah.
the way, yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable to be, and I was looking at them just like, wow, you guys are really strange, and they were looking at me like I'm really strange.
Right. Yeah.
But what did I do? I worked with them. I couldn't even speak their language. They couldn't speak mine. It didn't matter. We worked together. I cared for peace, and guess what? They learned what it means to care for peace, just caring, watching me care for them. And this is not new. Mothers know how to care for peace. And
Mm.
I learned the idea of caring for peace when during the Vietnam War, I was a hospital corpsman trainee in the United States Coast Guard Reserve. That's a long sentence. And I was stationed in an infirmary, and the infirmary was taking care of sick people who were coming from the Mekong Delta. They'd been in a boat, arms shot off, or
Mhm.
snake bites, you name it. And these guys who were lying in beds that I was taking care of were so grateful, and they were listening. I mean, I'm a guy. To get another guy listening to anything other than catch the ball is, even when you say catch the ball, they don't always do it.
Yeah.
But these guys, when I say hold your hand on that gauze, they do it.
Yeah.
So what I learned something wonderful. At the end of the long day, I was exhausted, but I was exhilarating. And I realized that that incredible feeling inside my heart was this weird word that I thought I invented. It's called peace. I cared and I got peace. Wow,
Right.
what an incredible word. All of a sudden, that word does not define the end of a war or the place between the war or even somebody sitting on top of a mountain with their legs crossed looking down into the valley where a whole bunch of people are suffering. That's not peace. The peace I'm talking about is the one that you get when you care. And so when I am caring for other people, I don't have to be a preacher.
Mhm.
I don't have to be a mother. I can look at that little kid right there who has a deflated soccer ball, and I can say, "Oh, I can do something like that." And I can take my bicycle pump out of my backpack because I knew in advance that they didn't have bicycle pumps. So, and I pumped up his soccer ball, and then we kicked the ball for a while. Let me tell you that's caring for peace. That's teaching the kid what care for peace is. But that kid's mother knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Kids' mothers know how to do it. And then, thinking that I invented this idea of, okay, if I care, I'll have peace. Oh, I ended up leaving the Coast Guard, working in other hospitals and meeting nurses all over the world. And they all knew already what it meant
What
to
it
care
was.
for peace. I wasn't teaching them anything. It was just, so when you ask, what about all those people who don't care for peace? And the fact is, didn't take long for them to realize, wait a minute, somebody who does care for peace, they raised you. You suckled on their breasts. These people taught you how to play soccer. These people who cared for your peace. That's all you have to do. You have to remind them that they already know what it is.
Well,
But
yeah.
that's what you have to bring to the discussion. That's what you have to bring to the discussion. You have to bring your ability to care for peace because then you can sit down at the table and look at the three stages of human evolution and say, now, where are we right
Mm.
now? Where are our leaders? And I look at Trump and I say, okay, well, Trump seems to me he's dragging his feet way deep into the first human evolution. But then
Yeah.
I hear some of the things he says and some of the things he's trying to do. He's trying to stop the wars. Huh. Okay. You know, he did something before he became president, or maybe it was between. I don't know.
Mm.
He gave Putin, his enemy, right? He gave Putin a whole bunch of COVID test test kits and a bunch of other stuff because he was giving it to Putin. Here's a guy who's bombing Ukraine and he's trying to get him to stop the war. You know, don't think for 1 minute that somewhere deep in Trump's heart isn't the ability to care
Mm.
for other people's peace. He just does it in the strangest way I've ever.
Yeah.
I I didn't imagine anybody could do that, but boy, look at Pope Leo. Man, there's a guy who knows what care for peace is. What he's been doing down in Peru. he's gonna just he's gonna he's gonna be preaching to the atheists and the agnostics, not just the capital C's.
Mm.
He's He's going to do a wonderful job. He's already doing a wonderful job. Uh,
Yeah, is that what you mean when you said that you need like one it, I'm paraphrasing now. If it was one belief or one faith, that we can all, whether you're atheist or agnostic or capital C Catholic or small letter,
yeah.
that we can all listen and to some extent agree in principle on certain things.
Yes. Here's the cert. Here is the certain thing, and you don't have to agree with it because you probably already have it in your heart. It's care for peace. That's what we're talking about. That's the top of my book, Care for Peace. When I wrote the Care for Peace song, I wrote what you do with your heart and with your hands is who you are. Who you are with your heart and hands. What you do with your hands and your heart.
Mm,
That's what Care for Peace is all about. You don't have to, you know, have a singular belief.
yeah,
That's just right here. I'm just recognizing what's already in there. That's it. Your ability to care for peace.
yeah, that makes sense. But so then I'm trying to connect this back to that human evolution. So we need this care for peace to plan the human evolution, or it's a part of the plan, or where does it fit in with this? We said it's a second human evolution. Am I correct?
I, I think I hear what your question is.
Mm-hmm.
If I could rephrase it a little bit, when we come to a conversation, we have to bring the tools
Mm-hmm.
to discuss. Now, that could be a language, that could be words, that could be, you know, your abilities. But when you come as yourself with no words coming out your mouth. You come with something that is right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to bring that to the discussion first. You have to understand what it means to care for peace and how you already know it, because there isn't a human alive who doesn't know what it means to care for peace. All you have to do is recognize it.
Mm,
Every single person I have ever talked with, and I talked to some. I went to an orphanage in Myanmar, and we had to do a whole translation thing because none of these kids could
yeah.
talk. But they said, "What's the most important thing?" And I said, "Love." And it's what you get. It's what you give. It's well, love is what you give. And they go, "Oh, huh? What do you mean? Love is what you give?" Well, I'm a kid. It's I want love, and I don't know if I'm getting it or not. I says, "Oh yeah, you see all these people around here. You're getting a lot of love, and they're giving a lot of love. That's what it is. If you identify what it is that is in this incredible orphanage, it was wonderful. There were some photographs taken of me with these little kids. It was just, I enjoyed holding these kids.
Yeah.
But I also realized that it was kind of like an Angelina Jolie,
Oh yeah,
moment
yeah.
where okay, it kind of felt wrong at the same time I was doing it
Mm,
because, yeah, I think I have a picture of it in the book. I know I have a picture of the book, but the bottom line is you have to bring something that everybody already has to the conversation. Then you can be using the language and then starting to talk the language. And then you can talk about what the tools are that you're going to use.
mm,
I want to have my prayer mat, and every 5 hours a day, right in the middle of our planning session, I want to throw my prayer mat down and pray.
mm.
Fine, fine. Believe me, when I was in Bahrain and the Persian Gulf, that is exactly what happened in some of those meetings. So
Yeah.
fine, that's wonderful. Now have a seat. And what they do is they roll up their prayer mattresses, and not mattress, excuse me, rugs. They
Mm,
roll up these. They aren't that very big. They're just about that wide, about that tall.
mm,
And a lot of the prayer rugs are beautiful because a lot of them are, well, I'd say most of them are very personal to each person
yeah.
who has one, and it's part of their spiritual connection. And they rolled them up and then they put them aside somewhere. And one lady, I remember, she put it underneath the chair, and I said, "Well, that's out of curiosity. Everybody else puts their prayer rug over there by the corner or something." She says, "Oh
Yeah.
no, I have to keep my prayer rug with me at all times."
Mm,
And I have thought about that so many times, mostly when I see someone with a dog that is, their service dog,
yeah.
or somebody who, or frankly, it's when my wife is with me. I like to have my wife there with me as much as possible.
Yeah.
So we all have our needs to be close to what we are connected to. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, bring it all to the meeting, and let's then start the meeting by talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing. So if from now on your discussion with people about global change and sustainability, secret and all of your conversations is help people back up to a commonality,
Mm-hmm.
back up to a commonality.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just bringing your opinions. Forget your opinions. Opinions are not as important as issues, and your commonality needs to be about issues. What, what do we really know? What do we know?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, that's um I think getting a clearer picture with what you mean with that evolution. I think if you allow me to summarize in in my words, I think that evolution is moving away from violence, especially like senseless violence, violence that there's no need, preferably no violence at all. And it is part of it is giving each other the space to be who they
Mm,
are, and taking the time to listen more to other people and understand other people more, and respecting them for who they are, for what brings them peace. Um, and there's this Dutch word, since you lived in Amsterdam, I don't know if you know the word, gunnen, is that you want that for the person, like you um, sincerely want them to have something, like you sincerely want them, as you are able to have that peace, we would sincerely want that our person to
oh, I
have
like that.
that peace as well. um,
Ah,
so that is the word that came in. And I don't know if I did the word
wow.
justice in translating it to English, but yeah.
Ah. How do you use that word? When do you use
Gunnen.
that word?
Um, ik gun het jou. It's usually when someone is happy from something, or benefiting from something that doesn't necessarily benefit you, or you're kind of neutral in that, but because that person is happy with that thing. For example, the mat, that
Ah,
lady. So I would, I if that makes you comfortable in being with that meeting, then it does nothing for me, otherwise. But you, yes, have it there. Especially, let's say, if
nice.
if it was a rule that you have to put the mat over there, But she says, no, I want it here. And everybody says, well, dat gunnen we wel, joh. Yeah,
Uh,
sure. We would like that for you if that,
uh.
yeah.
So it's a more deep feeling of I'm happy for you. It's
Yeah,
it sounds like it's closer to the heart than I'm happy for you. It
right.
sounds something deeper.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
I I all I knew was Honden Group.
Handen
All
goed?
those signs, Honden Group. Yes, the signs that are all over Amsterdam because
Ah,
they let their dogs poop all over the sidewalk.
ah,
So
ja. Hondenpoep.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's very good. You did a great job of summarizing.
Okay.
I'm constantly trying to find different ways of summarizing because people usually get something once they've heard it seven different times.
Yes.
It's very important. And like, for instance, the first sentence in my book is, "To care for peace may not be the secret of life, but it is as close to the secret of living there is." Ah, okay. That's just one
Mhm.
sentence. This, to care for peace may not be the secret of life because you're always hearing about people talking about the secret. Oh, what's the
Mm,
secret of life? What's the secret of life? Well, it may
yeah.
not be the secret of life, but it's as close to the secret of living there is. What's what's more a greater secret than that? To care for your own peace, to
Yeah.
care for the people who are around you, the mothers who take care of the peace of their babies. He's crying. So what do? Well, you feed him, and then you let him change the diaper, and then you bounce him around and you goo goo gaga to them. I've
Yeah.
got a granddaughter. My granddaughter is 7 months old. Believe me, I'm constantly caring for her peace when her mother isn't caring for peace.
Yeah.
Like, wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff.
And that's interesting way of looking at it as well, because sometimes we think that when we want to essentially have the baby stop crying, so have it be quiet, it is for our peace. But if the baby is crying, that often means that they're in some kind of distress. So you're caring from
Very
them to
good.
be peace and for you to have
Very
peace
good.
in return.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That that did a little beep beep in my heart
Uh,
just now. Thank you. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
you're right. I guess it's a mutual process, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if I am to understand where is this second human evolution going towards, that is that in that sense to deeply care about each other's peace. Not only I want peace, so you should shut up, but what is the problem that you're facing?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
That's
that we
good.
can solve that problem so that we can both be peaceful.
Yeah. I've been toying for a long time about how people of completely different religions can
Mhm,
communicate, and include agnostics and atheists. And one of the things that has been I've been mulling it over actually for the second book that I'm writing right now, which is the first book, by the way, has four templates in it,
mhm,
and the templates are helping people get a grip of where the first human evolution is and where the second human evolution could be,
mhm.
and where are we, between first human evolution and second human. Where are we? Are we still in the first? Are we somewhere
Yeah.
closer to the second in some ways? Well, that was the crux of the first book. And the thing about the first book is that I wanted to make sure that I didn't include religion in it, other
Mm,
than Care for Peace, because that was hard enough to be able to really get it across. I want them to, but I didn't talk about our spiritual nature, not too much. The third template is really balancing the spiritual and and physical aspects of
Mm-hmm.
where we need to be in the second human evolution. So yeah, I mean, I got into it, but I didn't get into comparative religions or anything.
Right.
And I decided that I would try, how can we take one sentence or two or three sentences of the Bible and convert those sentences into something that everybody understands,
Mm.
but does not detract in any way from those words in the Bible. Because if you look at King James Version and the International Version and all these different versions of the Bible, you'll see that there's little nuanced differences
Mm-hmm.
between each one of these different definitions. And so I took the sentence, in the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word is God. And you just take that. You say, okay, in the word, in the beginning, and if you read all the interpretations of that, they're saying that in the word, in the beginning, there was the word was God, and that was before the world. That was something that was there before planet Earth. That's what the interpretation of that. And so, I said, well, wait a minute. Um, you know, if you look at human evolution, you know, the primate human, the human primate, which is what we are. We're an advanced primate. That's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we we had a whole period of time for easily 2 million years plus maybe $450,000 when our animal nature was pretty much in control. So was there something that was there in the very beginning? And I'm thinking, yeah, God is the essence of the human spirit.
Mm.
And I came up with that sentence because I wanted to say, okay, what was that beginning? There weren't even words. So,
Right.
so you can't say in the beginning there was a word. Although, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, the word has been interpreted as Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ was there. I say, yeah, the Spirit, God and Jesus and the Holy Father is the
Mm.
essence, 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 ethereal essence
Mm-hmm.
of the human spirit. Because part of our language in communication has to be, how do we help interpret what we hear into things that we understand?
Yeah.
Oh, is that sublime? No. Nothing I say is sublime. It's all trying to get it down to simple,
Right.
simple,
Yeah.
easily to understand. That's my middle name. I used to do all sorts of stuff in hospitals when I found all these different silos of administrative departments all over hospitals, the admitting department, the registration in every single one of
Mm-hmm.
the clinic departments. I'd say, well, why don't we just put them all together? What a great idea. Wow, that's brilliant. That wasn't brilliant. You know, Gee, we
Yeah.
have all these airplanes around. Why don't we have an air traffic controller?
Was
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, so it's all simple stuff. We have to figure out how to interpret what we hear into something that we understand,
Yeah.
and then maybe the person that you're talking with might understand it better because you were giving them feedback too. You were saying,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah." Anyway, I tried that a sentence off on one of my capital C Catholic friends,
Mm-hmm.
and she liked it. She said, "That's really nice. The
Yeah.
essence, the essence of the spirit of the human spirit." I said, "Yeah, because we didn't have any words back then. So,
Right.
what did we really have back then? Well, we had
Yeah.
something that was hinting at us. Then we had shamanism. I mean,
Yeah.
shamanism was probably the first formal religion. And then little by little we went through all sorts of different, well, Jainism, Confucianism, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great book. It's called This Believing World by Lewis Brown, Browne. This Believing Brown, This Believing World. Its last ninth printing was in 1930,
Wow.
and it's the best book that I have ever read. I've only read a couple of books that talk about the history of religion, but he wasn't trying to make us feel he was smart. He
Mm.
was just saying, here's what it is. In about 2 chapters, he covered the whole damn thing.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was just marvel, marvel.
Yeah, I
So,
do
you know,
agree with you that we overcomplicated a lot of things, and um part of it is going to be like simplifying it, and sometimes I think also maybe removing the ego, because we, especially if we're talking about like things that we
oh,
studied in university, and we were giving it all these fancy names which you can explain very simply actually a lot of the times, and I think that there is it's some kind of element of, look, we are smarter and more intelligent, we went to university and we call it this in university, when it's maybe